Okay. All right, here we go. I still hear it. Mhm. All right. So again, thank you, members of the community, for your patience. Tonight, we're going to have this initial discussion, the Duarte Unified School District Boundary Study. This is prepared by our third-party consultant, Total School Solutions. All right, so let's go to the next slide, Mr. Ramos. We can't do that. We can't do it this way. No, because it's coming through the speaker. It's coming through the speakers. I just keep talking.
The live stream. It's transmitting and live streaming at the same time. If he uses his own live stream, the one from YouTube, fine. You'll be playing yourself.
Gotcha. Thank you.
not alone. There's a lot. Looking back at the RPAC meeting that happened back in 2016, I think it would benefit everybody to know what are the pros and cons for all of the schools in the district, and not just these two schools in particular. And I know that work was done, and I think it'd be great if we can go forward and share that in future meetings as we dig into this topic a little bit more.
Mrs. Carroll.
Yes, hi. I'm going to echo what James said, and I think we have to go revisit back 5 years and to talk about all the schools and figure it's just not pinpoint the two schools, but how it came to Beersley and Andrews Doherty. But I think we need to do that too. I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, board members?
No, I'm just going to echo the same. I'd like to hear about all the schools as well.
And we absolutely can. Again, this was an initial presentation. I would stress to the community and to members of the board that we know that this is it's a broader conversation, additional analysis, additional discussion, additional insight and information needs to be provided to the board as well as to the community to make the best informed decision about whatever it is that we decide to do. And I think that there are lots of different opportunities for us to have that dialogue and have that discussion. I would also just remind the board, if the board members have any questions, we also do have legal counsel who is here, who can also answer any additional questions that we might have. So I don't want to forget to mention that as well.
Excuse me. Oh, can I add something? I wanted to say that this is a start of a discussion, like you guys were saying, but it is an extremely big, decision. So I think we should definitely discuss it with the entire community and see our options with other schools, because these are beloved schools and we have to still decide others if this is what you guys want to go with. So definitely discuss it. Thank you for bringing it up, with our community and doing the slideshow and showing the pros and cons, because that's definitely extremely helpful.
Thank you. I echo every board member's comments that, yes, this is just the beginning and it's a lot to come. But I also want to mention, even though I haven't asked our superintendent, but I believe that due to the technical difficulties, tonight we will be holding a special board meeting to provide this presentation as a courtesy to those watching online and any other ones that might have to leave due to the delays. We hear from some people in the community that they are watching the presentation, but they cannot hear the comments. So we will hold a special meeting for that. But we really appreciate every single one that is here tonight, because we know how much we love our schools. There is no doubt about it, that you are here for a great reason. And during the time of the presentation, I didn't stop to think about how we're going to fix this issue. But you know what? I focus more on those little kids that are right there, sitting down there with the parents and other ones over there, but see them playing in there. And that's the reason that all of you are here. I do understand that. And so thank you for even bringing your kids in here. They don't know what's going on, but they are the reason that all of us are here. My kids, some of my kids graduate from the high school, other ones from Maxwell, other ones from Royal Oaks. So I know the passion that all of us have. So thank you that when they were talking, they didn't bother any of us. It was a music to our ears, because that's the reason that we are here. So thank you to all of you. So we will continue now with our board meeting. And we move to item 10.
Sorry, Madam President,
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, so are in this future meeting, are we going to have legal counsel at that meeting as well? I just wanted to, if we need to ask legal questions, now I wanted to ask them now.
Yeah, no, I understand. I will confer with the board president. I want to make sure that, the community members who are watching it get the same
Right.
information, but they can't hear right now. So we can definitely have Serene answer questions now,
Okay,
but likely we will need to invite her back so that
Okay.
way it could be done again as well.
They can hear right now, but they could not hear the presentation.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So
Okay.
if the, so I would invite to
Okay,
ask those questions then.
okay, go ahead,
So-
Dr. Finley.
So I'd invite Serene to the podium to answer questions.
Good evening.
thank you very much, Serene. So I think, I mean, one of the questions, and I know this is probably going to be a long response, so I don't, I guess, necessarily expect a full answer now, but one of the things that we as board members are probably going to need to know as we move along this line is what's sort of around the bend for each school as well. Because I think it'll be important to know not just what the attendance is and what the impact of on families would be and everything, but also what the future is for that school site if indeed there is a consolidation that takes place. So, what legally can be done with that? Is it sold? Is it leased? Is it, what happens with it? So if we could have those scenarios set out for each of the schools, I think that would be helpful, at least for me to know what's the next step beyond consolidation if in fact that's what we decide to do.
And you'd like me to address it now, right?
I mean,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You'd
yeah,
like me,
I know that if we're asking for that for all of the sites, I know that's a big ask. So I don't expect it right this second, but just something that at least I'll want to know, as we go through this process, what is the future for each of those sites as we explore all the options.
and thank you. That's an excellent question. I can say generally that and what you're seeing tonight is the start of this process of really engaging the community and having these discussions. But this is really a step-by-step process. So I think sometimes what happens is the idea of school closure / consolidation and what happens with the property or the school site that's closed gets conflated. It doesn't mean that just because the school is being closed or consolidated, that particular campus is being closed, that it can't house some programs. It can continue to house programs. It really depends on the district's needs and what it envisions for that site. And so as an initial matter, the board is considering, based on these options and other options that may be presented in the future, whether or not to consolidate certain school sites. As a next step, depending on what the district's needs are and further assessments and further input from the community and potentially having a 7-Eleven committee or a committee that advises on these issues, then a decision can be made moving forward about whether that property is, a recommendation is made by the community, by the community group to sell, lease, exchange. There's various options, or to continue to house programs there. That's another option. So again, I think to not think about it as, okay, school closure consolidation, and then the school site or the school sites potentially get disposed of. That's not the goal. The goal is to start this process, step one, start assessing what the options are, and then upon when a decision is made to close or consolidate a site, at that point, the board can then do further analysis of what to do with that site next and what are the best options for that site.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other question, board member? No? Okay. Thank you, Serene.
Thank you.
Can we move now to next?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay, we now move to item 10.2, presentation on transitioning to trustee area elections overview. Dr. Emerson, give me a second, please. Para la comunidad que habla español, quiero decirles que en la próxima reunión que tengamos, que la vamos a hacer, y es una reunión especial que va a ser para darle a conocer a todo el público lo que está pasando. Todos ustedes pudieron escuchar lo que dijimos aquí, pero el público no lo está está escuchando, pero sí estamos cumpliendo con los requisitos de hacerlo público. Entonces, para esa vez, yo me voy a asegurar de que tengamos un traductor que pueda estar escuchándolo usted por medio de los audífonos, a lo que se refiere toda la reunión. Muchas gracias por su paciencia.
Madam President, we will move to item 10.2 and item 10.3, presentation on transitioning to trustee area elections. This presentation will be done by Mr. Todd Robbins, legal counsel to the school district. Todd, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. So I believe, for what I understand, I'm going to be giving my presentation and also the demographer's presentation as well.
Yes, that would be great,
so-
given the circumstance.
Yeah, so we can relate on that pinch hitting thing. Yeah, and I don't believe I have control, right? So I need to let okay. Oh, I do have control. Okay. So I just want to give a brief, quick review of why we're here. Because the last I was in front of you, it was, I think, almost 2 years ago. A lot has happened since then. So if you recall back in, I believe it was 2019, the school district received a demand letter from an attorney here in Southern California informing the district that it should transition to by trustee area elections and move away from its at-large method of election. And if it did not do so, there was a threat of litigation attached to that. So during that time period, shortly after receiving the demand letter, I came and gave a presentation, and the board adopted what's called a resolution of intent to transition. And so you began the path to transition at that time. We were able to work out an agreement with the attorney to delay the process from starting until the 2020 census data came out, so that you wouldn't have to effectively do the process twice in a short period of time. So here we are now. We are waiting for the census data to be finalized by the California Department of Finance, but we are in a position where we can get you started. So tonight, later on in the meeting, there's going to be a public hearing. It's the first of 4 total public hearings. The public hearing tonight is for community members to provide input on what they think the maps should look like. We don't have maps yet because the law doesn't allow them to draw them until we have these 2 public meetings. So, okay, not gonna be able to see that very well. So I'll just talk through this. You can start this process by initiating it by an action of the board, which is what you did. There's a couple of other ways to initiate it, but those processes are never used. One is through a petition of the electorate. The other is by action of the county committee on school district organization. But the district is using the resolution to initiate the process. So that's why we're here today. So the process now, we have 2 public hearings before the drawing of maps. There will be one tonight and then one at your next board meeting, and then we can start drawing maps. The demographer's presentation has a timeline in it, so we can go into more detail about those public hearings and everything like that during that presentation. At the end of the process, sorry, there's an echo, and I don't know if it's in here or in, okay. At the end of the process, once we've had the public hearings and once maps have been reviewed and commented on, the final map would need to be published for at least 7 days before the board takes action to ultimately adopt it as the district's map for trustee areas. All right. You will also adopt a resolution at that final board meeting, where you will invite the Los Angeles County Committee on School District Organization to come into your school district, hold their own meeting, where they will review your process and they will say, hopefully, yes, we believe we'll get you through the process to the point where they'll say yes. That's not going to be an issue. Back when I first met with you, we talked about getting a waiver from the California Department of Education on that really narrow election question of should the district transition to by trustee area elections. If you recall, For those of you who were on the board back then, 100% of school districts have gotten that waiver. No school district has put that question to an election because the risks are too high. If the question is voted down, you'd still have liability under the California Voting Rights Act. So we were recommending you seek that waiver. The good news is the legislature recently amended the education code to allow the county committee to now handle that waiver process. So it's one less thing that we need to do from an administrative step because the county committee can now incorporate that waiver issue into their own process. And so we don't need to go to the California Department of Education for that. And that's a time-consuming process and has a lot of extra lead time to it. So that's helpful. Typically, it's going to take between 4 and 6 months to finish this process. And you'll see from the demographer's timeline that we have later on that I think we have you wrapping up around February to be done with your process. And then we'll get the county committee in here. It's important to remember that your terms will not be impacted by this process. And so for those of you who are, the goal is to be ready to have your first by trustee area election in 2022. For those of you who were elected in 2020, you will continue to serve until 2024. You will remain an at-large trustee until 2024. And so your seat, your term will not be impacted until you would be up for election in 2024. And then we're going to have to update these maps in 10 years after the 2030 census. So in 2031, you will be, you'll be reviewing the maps that you currently have. We'll be looking at population shifts, and it's possible if the changes do not create a variance of more than 10%, that we could just continue to use the maps that you've got, but it's hard to predict what's 10 years from now is going to look like. So I'm not going to, I mean, you can ask me questions about the legal issues, but if you just want to wait to ask questions until I'm done with the demographer's presentation, I'm happy to do it however the board desires. So if you could bring up the next presentation. So the demographer that we're going to be working with is Cooperative Strategies. They are a well-known group that provides these demographic services. I've worked with them for, 14 years now. And so they are a known entity in this process, and they do really good work. Justin Rich is the executive director of Cooperative Strategies, and he was hoping to present to you tonight, but obviously there were some technical glitches, and so he was not able to be with you on Zoom. So he sends his regrets. We're not going to go into too much of a background because the legal issues we just handled. I guess it's important to highlight this slide because we get a lot of questions. There are 3 methods of elections that the education code allows for. At-large elections, which is what you currently use, and that's where all of the members of the community get to vote for all 5 school board members. There are from trustee area elections, which is where trustee area boundaries are drawn and you're required to live within certain boundaries. However, it's still an at-large election to choose the board. And then there's by trustee area elections, which is what we're transitioning you to, which is where 5 trustee areas will be drawn. You will need to reside within a trustee area, and only the community members within that trustee area could vote for the trustee who resides in that area. Oftentimes we get a question, can we do kind of the city council model where we have 4 by trustee area trustees and 1 at large? And unfortunately, under the elections code, that's still considered an at-large election method. And so we have to follow the strictest compliance, which is to get you to strict by trustee area elections. So that's not going to be an option. So if I could have the help from the back room, just to make sure we get through this timeline okay. Tonight is the first pre-map public hearing, and we have some suggested prompts for the community later on in the presentation that they can be thinking about. The next pre-map public hearing has to happen within 30 days of this one, and your next regular board meeting isn't till more than 30 days after today, if we were looking at your calendar. So we may need to schedule a special meeting for that purpose, Dr. Emerson. Once that second pre-map public hearing takes place, the good news is, well, fingers crossed, because everything's been delayed, but we anticipate having the census data at that point, and being able to draw conceptual maps. And we will work with Dr. Emerson to prepare those conceptual maps and bring you a number of options. They will be published before the October 21st board meeting. And so the community will be able to see them. They'll be available for you to review prior to the board meeting, and then there will be a public hearing on those maps at that time. If the school district has the capacity on their website, we recommend putting up a kind of a special page dedicated to this process where the community can go on, review the maps, zoom in, and provide comments 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then those comments would be compiled, provided to the demographer, and presented to you as a board for consideration. November, we're looking at the second public meeting, public hearing rather, on the proposed conceptual trustee area maps. And then there's a couple of options, understanding that December tends to be an organizational meeting and it may be busy with things that are happening in December. We could have a final vote on a map and the resolution at your December meeting, or we could push it to January. One thing I would want to do is in the not too distant future, I can reach out to the LA County Committee on School District Organization and see how many of these they're having to deal with, because their schedule may be impacted. And so that may drive a recommendation about when we recommend that you finish this process so that we can make sure that they can get in here in time to do theirs. And so we're anticipating January, February for the LA County Committee to come in here, review your process. And then, like I said, because that waiver language is included in there now, we've deleted the CDE portion that we would normally put in here, because thankfully we don't have to worry about that. And the LA County Committee has already told us, general counsel for them has told us that they will consider the new language that the legislature allows them to consider and include it in the resolution if it's warranted. So we anticipate that being something that will be available to us. Go ahead to the next slide. When drawing trustee areas and the maps, we have some factors that we have to consider. The first thing is we have to consider the total population of the district, and we have to divide it by 5. Each area has to be as equal in population as possible, with a variance of no greater than 10% from the largest trustee area to the smallest trustee area. The next consideration that we have to comply with is the Federal Voting Rights Act. If you pay attention to redistricting and you know the issues of congressional maps and things like that, you may be familiar with the terms packing and cracking. The Federal Voting Rights Act is interested in preventing dilution of voting strength. It wants to make sure that members of a protected class do not have their voting strength diluted. So the concept of packing would be if the members of a protected class are spread strongly throughout the school district, we would want to avoid packing them all into one area in a way that would reduce their strength throughout the district and only limit it to that one area. Conversely, if they're concentrated in one area, we would want to make sure we don't cut them in half or cut that area into thirds or quarters and dilute their voting strength that way by spreading it throughout the district. So we want to make sure that that's taken into consideration, and the demographers are very good about that, and I review the maps to make sure that we're in compliance. We want to make sure that the maps are as compact and contiguous as possible when you're looking at the boundaries. You've heard the term gerrymandering. We don't want the maps to look like they have unicorns or dragons or anything like that on them. We want the maps to be logical, geometrically compact to the greatest extent possible. Your district is an interesting shape, but there are ways that maps can be drawn even with interesting shaped districts. We want to respect communities of interest as much as possible. Dr. Emerson's presentation about the elementary schools in the community Those neighborhoods, we want to make sure that we respect those neighborhoods. We don't want to chop them up to the best of our ability. And that's why community feedback, once we have maps, is going to be really important, because your community knows your community better than we do. And so if a line is drawn and there's a concern about where it's drawn, we want to hear about that. So we want to keep those communities of interest intact to the greatest extent possible. We follow man-made and natural boundaries to the greatest extent possible. You have freeways, you have riverbeds and things like that will factor into how these maps look, and those may form natural boundaries for us to look at. We can respect incumbency, so if that's a desire of the board, that it could be one factor but not a primary factor that we can look at. The community has voted the 5 of you onto this board. They have spoken, and so we have the ability, if possible, but not as a primary factor, to see if we can preserve the 5 of you. It's not always possible. And so we can do our best. Some districts tell us, nope, don't look at that at all. Other districts say, you can look at that and present us with a map that might factor that in, and we can see what that might look like. And then any other considerations that you may want us to take into account when we're drawing the maps. The board, the community, that's what these pre-map public hearings are for. So you can let us know there. When we're looking at the demographics of the district, the majority population, well, the strong plurality is the Hispanic Latino population at 47.4%. Keep in mind, this is 2010 census data. We don't have the new census data yet, so this will change. The next largest group is the white population at 28%, and you can see going down. So this is total population. The next slide is an important number. It's the citizens voting age population. You're going to be hearing this a lot from either me or from the demographers, and you may hear it kind of in a shorter name, CVAP. And what that is the number that we're supposed to look at for purposes of compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. We are looking to see when we are drawing boundary lines, can we draw a majority minority area using this citizens voting age population data? And if we can, we need to make sure that the map that we approve ultimately has that majority minority area on it. That's where we're starting to get to those concerns of cracking and packing. If we can do it, we should. We shouldn't be cutting that up or splitting it. So the first thing you do when you look at a map is you divide it up by total population, and then you look at the citizens voting age population and you see, okay, what are the impacts of that total population map that we just drew? And then we kind of go from there. All right. So let's see, this is kind of an aerial view of your school district. It's an interesting shape. So how should lines be drawn? Obviously, when you look at this map, there's some natural things that we can look at. We can look at the 210 freeway. We can look at Huntington Drive. You've got, some population to the southeast side of the district, but on the southwest side of the district, it looks like it may be a natural area. So those are some of the things that we're going to be looked at. A lot of your population is concentrated on the north end of the district. And so, the map is going to be, this image divided by 5. And so we'll be presenting you with some information on that. So the next couple of slides are going to be prompts for the community to think about, for you to think about when we're talking about what factors should go into drawing these maps. So some of the feedback that we're looking for, and if you have the capacity to do it on your website as well, to put a portal up right now, well, not right now, but in the next couple of days, where people could provide some feedback as well, so that if they weren't able to attend tonight, they could provide feedback online. So some of the things we look for is, for example, I would like to keep neighborhood X and neighborhood Y in the same trustee area because, and whatever local considerations that individual might want us to think about. Go ahead to the next slide. Some other things to think about. For example, I think Huntington Drive may make sense as a trustee area boundary because it keeps communities together, or it provides good representation for X, Y, and Z reasons. So these are the kind of comments at this stage in the process that we are looking for. Go ahead. Oh, here we go. Again, some other prompts. I think all of why community should be in an area because it keeps communities together, for example. Some school districts say, for example, every trustee area should serve multiple school boundaries and sites because it provides good representation. So those are just some of the things that we would ask you and the community to think about when you're providing feedback tonight and on the website and at the subsequent public hearing. Okay, so that was a lot of information, but I'm happy to take some questions.
Board members? Dr. Finley.
Yes, thank you very much. So two questions. One, maybe putting the cart a little bit before the horse here.
Sure.
But as you probably know, for city council, we have 7 districts in our city. How do we prevent confusion between, someone who lives in District 3 for the school district and District 7 for the city council? Can we help with that as we're trying to minimize confusion for the voters, or is that not something we should take into consideration?
I certainly think it's something we should look at, but we do have to view this as our own process. And I can understand that would be confusing, that if you're in District 7 in the city council and you're in District 2 for the school district, that may make for some confusing issues. We can have cooperative strategies look at the city council boundaries and how they're numbered and see if there's any logical way to do that for you in terms of, because we can number our districts however we want.
Right.
Typically they go west to east when they do it just by default. But we can work on that and see if it makes any sense.
Okay.
But it's going to be challenged because there's 2 more city council districts than there are school districts, school board districts. So.
Okay. And then second question was, and you can clarify this, I'm just kind of going based off of my memory. The settlement agreement that we had, I think it had language in there about some boundaries that had to exist. So those are already sort of taken into account or already agreed upon. Is that right?
Yeah, there are some factors that we need to look at when we're drawing the maps. So those will be things that they tend to be on the southern end of the district. So they will be factors that we will be applying to the maps. Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Any other question or comment? No?
I was just going to
Okay,
comment.
Mrs. Carroll.
Yeah, I was just going to say, out of the 5 of us, 4 of us live really close in proximity. So is that I'm sure there's going to be some difficulty with what we were talking about with trying to place what you had all on there, like the minority, the demographics. So
Yeah.
I know that's going to pose an issue. I guess the question is, how difficult is it? And something like this. And another question would be, I don't know if a lot of the audience knows, like, this is happening pretty much everywhere. Are local districts around us complying to this also?
Yes.
Also.
So I primarily, let me ask you your first
Okay.
question. If the board is interested in looking at a map that preserves incumbency, sees what that looks like. Again, the first thing we do is we divide it up by total population. We know where we'll ask the superintendent to give us your addresses so we can plot those on the map and you can see where you live and the community can see where you are. And then, we can look to see what's possible, but again, it can't be a primary factor. Again, we don't want those unicorns or dragons on our maps. But it can be a factor that we look at. And so we've seen it where trustees live close together. We had a district where they literally lived next door and there's nothing you can do about that. But if you live, in a relatively same area, sometimes it happens. So yes, The second question, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your second
Oh,
question.
if other districts, local.
Oh,
districts
yes,
around us would
yes. I do primarily my work in LA, I'm sorry, in Orange County, San Bernardino, and Riverside. But just about every district there has transitioned. In fact, Riverside has 2 school districts that haven't transitioned and one just started in the process. So like they're mostly done. And San Bernardino County is the same. Orange County is all transitioned, and LA County is very strongly transitioned as well. So I think Pasadena's been transitioned. Some of your closer districts, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't be out on a ledge on this one.
Thank you.
Oh, I have
Mrs. Cook?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, I know we're gonna put tools for our community members to give us feedback, but I'm wondering, can they also help determine the specific characteristics that we're gonna choose when drawing the maps? Could
Yes,
they be a part of that conversation, like creating a committee in partnership with you, with the demographers, as well as a community created group to work with the demographers to help develop, I guess, like principles on what we're looking for or what the community is looking for when drawing these boundaries?
certainly. I mean, the district can do whatever it wants for
Okay.
community input. The law only requires these 4 public hearings, but school districts have kind of run the gamut on how they have done this. I helped a high school district. Goodness, that was a long time ago, like 8 years ago now, transition. And I think they held, I want to say between 16 and 20 community input meetings outside of school board meetings. So at the various high schools, they would hold them in the morning so that people who worked in the afternoon could attend. And what's interesting is, despite all of that feedback, we still, at the night that they voted to approve everything, we still got feedback that there wasn't enough community input. So, you know, as much as and then other times we do community input meetings and nobody shows up. But you're certainly welcome to, provide direction to your superintendent. However much community feedback you want to do, in addition to these 4, in addition to the website, you certainly have the discretion to do that.
So I guess, Dr. Emerson, would this be something that we could potentially, I guess, if community members aren't willing to be on the committee, at least put on the site where they can provide their input if they'd like to join one?
Yeah, so I think that during the course of the presentation this evening, it gave some nice sentence stems and some examples of ways to give that feedback. We have robust tools that we already have in place. We can use Thought Exchange as a digital platform that gets a lot of community engagement and conversation going. Then we can use that to inform kind of bigger thematic kind of pieces. And then we incorporate that into any kind of external community engagement, which we absolutely are going to do and will need to do to make sure we get that feedback. And then that will then help to drive, like, what are those guiding principles as we take all of that collective feedback and to kind of theme that out, determine what are the kind of guiding principles that we'll use to kind of complete the rest of the work. So I think yes to your question.
And just to expand upon that just a little bit, I mentioned in the presentation that any feedback that goes on the website comes to us and then comes to you, but it comes to us so that when it comes time to draw the maps, we can incorporate that in to the greatest extent possible. And then we would inform you when we're presenting the maps to you in the public meeting. You know, this map has these considerations taken into it based on the feedback that we received on the website or whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
Okay. We continue with our board meeting, and we will switch from item 11. We will have number 12 to go instead of 11. So this is request to address the board, and we will go back to the superintendent report. So go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, just out of courtesy to our community, we thought we'd switch and do a public comment first, and then do the superintendent's report thereafter. And so I'll remind the community that you have 3 minutes to make your comment. and we'll take each of the speakers in turn. At the time, if you hit 3 minutes, I'll simply share with you that your time has expired. I'd ask that you all just kind of respect that 3-minute threshold. Okay, our first speaker this evening, Mr. Tom Reyes.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Emerson, Mr. President. I'm very disappointed in the direction this district has been going. It's taking a downward spiral. Still can't manage the budget. You're still approving a negative budget. We asked for a FIC map back in the day and it was ignored. Needs to happen to know what the heck we're doing with all this money. Dr. Emerson, your leadership or lack thereof is harming our children and the ability for them to learn. We hired you not to delegate your authority to Mr. Crosby, but to do your job. It's a shame that you're choosing the two schools that are in the heart of our city and that are used by our Parks and Rec department, sports groups, and families for recreation. This is a small town and we need our green space. Last time the board did this, we had several community meetings with plenty of notice given to the community and our parents and to allow plenty of input. If it was up to me, I would choose Valley View to close. 2/3 of the students are driven there by their parents. But of course, that's probably not going to happen because 4 out of the 5 of you live in that area. Thus, the need for districting for elections. That way we will have proper representation for this district. Turn Andrus Duarte into a junior high school. It used to be. Close Valley View, move all those resources to the other schools. Step up to the plate, Dr. Emerson. You need to be more visible. You need to be accessible. You need to be transparent. Do the right thing, board, on behalf of all our students. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eduardo Valencia. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I came just to get some information. After collecting the data that you have shown us, I believe that you have option A, right, which is to close Beardsley or Andrus Duarte or both. Were the other schools considered as well to be closed? Would you close Maxwell or would you close a Valley View or Royal Oaks or anything like that? I only see those two schools being pointed out. My kids attend Beardsley. They have a wonderful dual language program, which has helped them grow and has kept them at the top of their class. I'm concerned for that program. Would we lose it? Are we going to hold on to those valuable teachers that are very important, because at the basis of it all is the children? If money is the issue, I'm guessing if you have more enrollments and you grow the school district or whatever it is, then that's more funding that might, help. Since we're losing a lot of the kids or enrollment or whatever it is, we should probably look to enhance what we already have to attract more residents and therefore more children. which might help with whatever budget concerns you may have as well. And yeah, I mean, it's the first of many meetings, and I will surely come up with some other questions, I'm sure. We're just concerned parents out here. One note, what is the Valley View school, whenever there's issues, whether it's fire or rain, they do tend to close. That's a big issue. None of the other schools usually close. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is, I believe it's Evan Wyckoff. Evan Wyckoff.
Hello, board. So, hi, my name is Evan Wyckoff. I'm a 7th grader at Royal Oaks Academy. I used to go to Valley View Elementary until 3rd grade, where I was pulled and homeschooled for 3 years. It's my first year back in the public school system. Right? The COVID things were just wear a mask. I can take it off outside, right? I could handle that. Sorry, thank you. And then the first case of COVID happened at Royal Oaks. Well, after that, the same day I got sent home from school, told I couldn't come back for 10 days. I came back to school for 1 week, 7 days or 5 days, one school week, and then was sent home again for another 10 days because I was exposed to COVID once again. We've had a total of 30 days where school has been in session, and I've missed 15 of them because of quarantine. It just seems like you don't care almost. And there isn't even there isn't something to help, like an audio recording of the teacher's lessons. I'm in accelerated classes. I'm in 7-8 accelerated math. And it's a little difficult. We have notes that we do, but when you don't hear the teacher's explanation of the lessons, it becomes extremely difficult to complete it. And it feels like there isn't that. And now there's rumors of a vaccine mandate possibly. And I feel that that's my choice and my parents' choice, whether I get that. And the virus affects kids about the same as the flu. You don't force kids to wear masks if they have the flu. You don't force them to get the flu shot to attend school. So why is it any different for this virus? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Evan. Next, we'll invite Russell Wyckoff.
Good evening, board. I'm not a public speaker. I hate speaking in public. I hate doing this right here. But what I see going on has driven me to come out here.
I do have to interrupt you, sir.
Yes, sir.
You are supposed to have a mask on while you're indoors.
Sir, I'm not COVID positive. I'm not a danger to anybody here.
Mr. Wyckoff, I would just remind you that we're under a mandate by the county.
It's
of
not
Los
a law.
Angeles.
I'm just going to say what I have to say and I'll be out of your hair, okay?
I would just ask that.
I heard a few
mask on,
things
sir.
tonight that really moved me. Our belief statement.
Mr. Wyckoff,
is
I would ask
amazing.
you, sir, if you could please place a mask on. Nearly every other person, I would ask everybody who's actually entered the building that you have a mask on. That's the expectation.
It's a public meeting where there are people here.
I would just ask that you place a mask on, sir, please.
Put the mask on, please, just so we can hear what you guys say.
Evan, bring me my mask.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
This right here does absolutely nothing for anybody. Anyway, I wanted to say, our belief statement really struck home with me. I think we're failing our kids though in that last line. We have the responsibility to find solutions that enable all students to learn. How can they learn when you're sending them home every other week? There's no method for classroom teaching for them. They're not able to ask questions. They have to email their teacher. Maybe they get a response, maybe they don't. I'm pissed. Excuse my language. I am pissed. We're forcing our kids to isolate themselves from each other. They're getting scared to come talk to each other. Because my son, twice now, he's been around friends that ended up testing positive. He hasn't. He hasn't been sick at all. And they send him home for 10 days. These restrictions we're putting on our kids are putting them at risk of stress disorders, PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Look it up. We're teaching our kids to fear instead of overcome, and to be confident, and to be just strong. We're teaching them fear, and that's wrong. Between March 1st and July 2020, a study was conducted on the hospitalization rate of children under the age of 18 with confirmed COVID-19. They found that the vast majority of cases were either asymptomatic or extremely mild. We're doing this to our kids. This is damn near abuse. Knock it off. Make provisions. Who thought that it was wise to quarantine our kids and send them home for 10 days, but then didn't think that they would want to learn? What happened to all the stuff from last year? Where's all the stuff from last year when they were required to be at home? Why is there no provision for him to be able to interact with his teachers while the class is going on? This is crazy. And if you guys, I don't know what your guys' plans are for the vaccine mandates that are coming down. I know Los Angeles Unified just did it. LA County is now going to mandate the COVID passport. If you think you're doing that to my son, he'll be yanked out of that school so fast, and you'll lose another attendee to one of your schools. That's what happened when he was in 3rd grade, and I had a problem with a teacher that they would not correct, who mocked him in front of the class for his writing skills, when he's one of the smartest damn kids I've ever met in my life. They wanted to put him in 8th grade this year at 12 years old because he already completed the 7th grade curriculum in homeschool. We made the choice to have him do the AP classes and the accelerated math. Get it together. Take care of our kids.
That's your time, Mr. Wyckoff. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Cynthia Woodman. Cynthia, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Cynthia Woodman. I'm a teacher at Andreas Dwordy Elementary School, and this is my 30th year in Dwordy. It sounded really good on paper and in the news, the CARES Act funding, which was signed on March 2020. And I quote the California Department of Education. The relief package provides states with both funding and streamlined waivers to give state educational agencies necessary flexibilities to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. The relief package includes a $31 billion in emergency funding for education. The key word here is necessary flexibility. Now let's talk about the realities. Dwordy received COVID relief money, but what they're doing with it, I don't know. Do you? I can tell you what they're not doing with it. They're not hiring more teachers to lower class sizes. This year of all years is the one where the district should have used and exercised necessary flexibilities, but they haven't, and I'd like to know why. This year, for the first time in 21 years, I have a K-1 combo, 26 students. It's the most I've ever had in one class. These are students who have never been inside of a classroom. Of the 12 first graders I have, only a few of them attended in-person class in April and May. Learning loss is real. What these students need this year of all years are lower class sizes. My partner, Ms. Gutierrez, is teaching 24 students in a TKK combination. The very fact that a combination class was made with TK students shows how ill-informed the district is regarding early childhood development. To put it into perspective, next year for the 2022 school year, All TK classrooms will require a 10-to-1 pupil to teacher ratio. However, magically this year, Ms. Gutierrez is expected to teach 2 grades with more than double that. All of our classes are sitting at maximum capacity, but just a few months ago in April and May, those same classes could have no more than 12 students. They had to be spaced 6 feet apart. Now we can pack them in with no issues in spite of an increased cases of Delta variant. The district has done it because they can. They could have used that money to hire another teacher and give our students the gift of smaller classes. But perhaps the thought of operating a business with a higher staff to customer ratio didn't sit well with our CEO and our business manager. What these students need right now, what we teachers need right now are boots on the ground. You're going to get the spin from the corporate office saying that the relief money is being spent on some fancy programs. We just saw it. We don't need any more expensive programs. What our students need are smaller class sizes to help them recover and regain learning. So when you hear the phrase, it's all about the students, please ask questions because it's not. It's all about the money.
Next, I would invite Erica Sanchez, who's getting ready to sit down. Come on up, Erica. Erica, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm just going to jump right in. I've sat on many a budget committee meeting. I know the district is in trouble financially and that school closure was a possibility. But as always, I have lots of questions. Now, I know we are in the first steps of assessing school closures, but as a parent with students in DeWard Unified, I request full transparency from our district, admin, and our board members every step of the way. This will not be an easy decision. This will not make you our favorite people, but at least you would have our respect for being upfront and honest. I noticed both Andress, DeWard, and Beardsley are on the recommended sites to close. This is very concerning. It would be taking 2 schools from the areas of DeWard that are most vulnerable. Will you be looking at the data of our homeless, foster, temporarily doubled up population to ensure they won't be severely impacted? What about our SPED students? Will they and their services they receive at each site be taken into consideration? You are discussing closing 1 and possibly 2 K through 8s. Does that mean Valley View will be extended to up to 8th grade? If so, what will the cost be? What about transportation? Will transportation, and I do not mean Zoom, be provided for the students since they are being displaced? What if an emergency happens? Now all the schools are farther away from us to get to our kids. I hope that as data is researched, our board members look at all aspects before deciding on what school or schools should be closed. As I look up at our board members, not one single board member lives within the Beardsley and or Andress DeWard boundaries. Our schools, our students, our families are not fairly represented by the board members. Those above Huntington Drive continue to make decisions for those of us down below. I was at the meeting 5 years ago when school closures were being discussed, as were some of you sitting up there. And I clearly remember that we were very divisive and finger pointing because we wanted to save our neighborhood schools. Can you truly say that you, as you're doing your research, are listening to recommendations? Hold on, wait. Picked it up. That doesn't count. Can you truly say that you are doing your research, listening to recommendations, and when you go to vote, will you vote for what is right? Or will you vote for any school so long it not be a school your children attend or attended? Will you be looking at the schools that can give you the most money and sell it off to the highest bidder? Will you be taking into consideration our students and how this will affect their education, their social emotional well-being? Please remember, these schools you wish to close do not have a counselor on their site every day, like another K-8 does, to help these children cope with the reality that their school, their second home, their safe zone is being closed. I've said it time and time again. Should you have spent enough time and effort on fixing up all the schools equally and giving them equal opportunities to thrive, then we may have a better dispersed student population and we wouldn't be losing as many kids to the competing districts in our area. You are not listening to us. You are not listening to the staff and you're not listening to the community. We have asked for reduction of admin salary and admin count at the district level, but that's fallen on deaf ears. How do you justify being so top heavy, but continually?
That's your time, Erica.
All right, I'll email it, but thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Next, I'll invite Joseph Chan. Joseph Chan to speak. Joseph, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm a longtime community member. I remember riding my bike to hang out the bowling alley on Mount Olive. You know,
Sir, if you can
it's,
lift your mask up, please.
yeah, it's just kind of frustrating, you know, this hearing relatives, their children go to the Doherty School District and they have to wear masks during their PE session. You know, MIT just came out with a study last month that said outdoor infection rate is only 1%, 0.101%. You know, there's a misconception that was put out by the CDC that was at 10%, but that was actually they counted indoor infection, so it's actually 1%. So I want to know, like, children have a hard time, especially a lot of children have asthma. How are you going to mandate that they have to wear masks outdoors during PE? Like, what kind of common sense is that? And then also, in 2020, Dr. Fauci said that, you know, masks are basically ineffective unless, you know, it's blocking droplets from, like, if you cough or you're sneezing. And that's where it starts with, like, the parents, where you just teach, like, common sense, like, you know, put your hand into your elbow when you cough or you're sneezing. But a lot of students, you know, I personally have a friend that their child went to the hospital, and this is very distressing for me. Like, what kind of common sense or trusting the science is this when you're having children, you know, that have they're not fully developed, they have asthma, and you're making them to mask up during PE classes, you know, like, I want to know what's your explanation for that, please, because this is very, you know, not common sense, not using your brains. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Heather Messner. You have 3
Good
minutes.
evening, Doherty Unified School Board. Good evening, Doherty Unified Leadership Team and community members, including other GUEA members, classified members. Tonight, I'm addressing the board after, like 2.5 years of watching on virtual devices. The last time I got to speak was February of 2019. So I would like to formally congratulate our GUEA and Door School Board member, Jackie Koo, former math teacher. It's a pleasure to get to address you in person. So, and all of you, I'm extremely excited to be here. I would like to first talk about the positive partnerships that we have had with the district in working through 2 MOUs for COVID school closure, our working conditions for our early childhood preschool full year class return to campus, our elementary and hybrid learning conditions, including our special education students, our secondary hybrid learning conditions, a summer extended learning opportunity or the summer bridge program agreement, a bonus that recognizes our additional hard work of distance and hybrid learning for classified that also DUEA members were able to pass on to, I believe our management got it as well. We now have just signed an extension of COVID leave to December 31st. So we've had amazing partnerships working together with the district on creating all different types of agreements that affect the learning conditions of our students. We also had an amazing, great, productive first bargaining session this past week on Tuesday, where we are discussing things such as school closure consolidation, and what is going to come after lots of discussions on that matter. It's not an easy topic. The teachers union has been prepared to address this for years. We've seen the effects of having smaller middle schools at the Southern K-8s for a while now. And what Dr. Emerson had said about making an optimal learning condition for our middle schools is something that we 100% are advocating for. We don't see the same learning opportunities at our Southern schools as compared to our Royal Oaks campus. Essentially, when Northview went away, Royal Oaks became the next Northview. And I'm not saying that having small K-8 schools are not good. They're great. They're safe. They're nurturing.
That's your time, Heather.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a lot more discussions, including the safety of teachers and students coming up, but we are 100% here to partner with you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we'll invite Carrie O. I would ask Carrie, do you have a mask?
Your city guidelines say that you have an exemption, that you honor exemptions. So I'm asking you not to discriminate against me. The topic of mask mandates and forced vaccinations has caused great concern across our country. I'm urging you not to enforce mask mandates or vaccination mandates for our students. When you were sworn in as school board members, you stood before God and swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. The government has no ability and no authority to mandate our health choices. As elected school board members, you have an obligation to honor the oath you took and guard our liberty and freedom. It's time for our government and politicians to come to the realization that they only exist because we, the people, formed our government to secure the blessings of individual liberty and freedom. When you debate the issues of masks, who are the sources of your information? Did you hire environmental toxicologist or industrial hygienist to come in and check out your schools? These are the only professionals who are qualified by their education to determine whether a school facility is infected and needs decontamination. By the way, the people with this expertise would not recommend masks. In fact, they've been vocal critics of the mask because they know the mask cannot stop the virus, which is thousands of times smaller than the holes in the mask. Instead, these experts would focus on decontamination or ventilation. Is your source of information coming from the health department? If so, what are their qualifications? Are they experts in virology? Do they have advanced degrees in virology? Are they experts in epidemiology? Have they published papers in peer-reviewed journals? Have they ever served as expert witnesses in a court of law? Have they lectured internationally or domestically on the subject? What makes them experts? Is the CDC the source of your information? The CDC completed the largest study of its kind. It's the only one of its kind that directly compared mask-wearing students to non-mask-wearing students. The conclusion of their study is that there's no statistical benefits to wearing a mask. Is your expert from the state? How does someone from the state give you the information so that you can do due diligence and make this kind of decision? How did you come to the conclusion that your students were in imminent danger and needed to wear a mask? Did the state present you with peer review literature?
Carrie, that is your time.
Okay, in closing, I would just like to remind you as school board members, you have no authority whatsoever to mandate masks or vaccines to your students. Our students, not your students.
Potential Nobody has a virus.
99.95% survival rate.
Yep. All right, well.
99.95% survival rate.
That's going out some of your own. Okay, well, we'll keep people.
At this time, we'd like to invite our next speaker. And just, I would just remind our community, I understand the passion. However, our kids are watching, community is watching. Let's be civil and let's have people share their thoughts. And again, I would just ask that we respect the fact that it's a reasonable expectation to place a mask on your face while you're speaking at a microphone that several other people will speak at. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. At this time, I'd like to invite Pat Shear to speak. Good evening, Pat. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Well, good evening. I'm here to give you an update on our bargaining. We opened bargaining this last Tuesday. And in attendance, myself, Andrew Thill, we are co-leads this year, along with Teresa George and Ozzy Hernandez. And of course, the district team, Nadia, Rick, Jenny Romero, and Louis Haro. And then Jim was there also to give us a good presentation. So we are definitely aware, and we discussed the issues that are going on with COVID and school closure and outstanding things such as the retirement packages. Jim gave us a very good presentation on how the ESSER money is going, the 3 different ESSER fundings. He told us that ESSER 1 funds have already been spent. ESSER 2 funds are either spent or earmarked, and ESSER 3 funds have a list of what can and cannot be used. Now, knowing that the district books just closed last week, he has told us he will give us details on that for the next negotiating meeting, which is very reasonable. You have to close the books in order to have the details. So we had requested input on bargaining on how the money in ESSER 3 is being spent, especially in anything that would pertain to salary, benefits, working condition, hours, because there's a lot of things in that area that would affect that on what they're telling us ESSER 3 can and hopefully will be spent on. We had a high-level overview of the unaudited actuals, but again, because that's being released tonight to the board, we were not given the details as we shouldn't be, because you need to have that information first before it's made public. So we will have that information again by the next board meeting, or I believe we'll have copies of that coming out probably tomorrow. So we made a good progress for our starting information. We did discuss the budget stabilization plan, and given all the things that happened last year, we understand that the progress that we wanted to make on that plan was not made, but we made a ton of good progress. We also presented for the DUEA a compensation proposal based on the COLA fundings that the state is given. And as per our normal procedure, we issue a proposal, or the district issues a proposal, and then you take time, look at it, research it, and come back with a counter. So at next time, we will probably see a counter for that one. Also, the district proposed a wonderful MOU that extends our 80 hours of COVID relief pay should you become sick. And we were able to sign that right away. So
Pat,
thank
that's
you
your
so
time,
much
Pat.
for that. I
That's your
just want-
time.
Overall, it was very productive, and we wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next, I'd invite Kimberly Smith to speak. Kimberly, do you have a mask?
You can't discriminate against me. I have a medical condition. The young ladies sworn in the beginning of the meeting. Young ladies were sworn in the beginning of the meeting, and they promised to defend the Constitution, and everyone in here clapped for them. Every single one of you with a face mask on your face that is stripping yourself of your First Amendment right. The hypocrisy of every single person is astounding and it is embarrassing. A child came up to the podium, a child that has more common sense and fight than every person in this room. A child came up here. That face mask is unconstitutional. My grandfather was killed during World War II. He didn't sacrifice his life to sit here to have face masks put on these people and to be controlled by the tyrannical government. You're stripping the kids, you're stripping the people of their First Amendment right, and I do not appreciate it. Gavin Newsom and the Department of Health, they have no right to strip us of our rights. They are scaring the people of the state of California, like that woman over there, in the name of control. The name of control. The face mask has to do with control. It has nothing to do with the virus. Even if one little drop of the gets into the respiratory system, the virus is 99.9% survivable without any medical intervention. There are proven medications to knock it out of your system and get you feeling better within hours. It is treatable. The people did not die because of COVID. They died because of the mismanagement of the medical doctors. Less than 40,000 Americans have died from the virus. That's 0.00011% of 340 million. Of that 40K, few were children. Instead of letting these kids live like kids and promote preventative vitamins, exercises, hand washing, you're forcing dirty, moldy, virus, bacteria-filled face diapers that not only strips them of their personal autonomy, but has caused children to die of bacterial pneumonia and other documented respiratory issues. There will be long-term psychological repercussions perpetuated on the kids of the United States because they were forced to wear the mask. The mask and the vaccines are unconstitutional and they are completely unnecessary. Legal immigrants have risked their life to come to this country to get away from tyrannical governments, only to be told that they can't be free here in the United States of America. A clause in the Constitution states that even in a pandemic, of which we're not in a pandemic, no president or governor has the right to strip Americans of their inalienable right to breathe fresh air. These students aren't being taught about the greatness and freedoms of America. They are being taught that they must obey a mandate that is not a law for a virus that bypasses every type of face mask. The virus is so tiny, it's submicroscopic. There's 21% of oxygen is in the air that we breathe. The face mask drops that amount to less than 16%. You're depriving the children's brains of oxygen. They are losing their ability to problem solve, retain information, think critically, rationalize reality, just to name a few. There's no science behind the mask being good for anybody, and you cannot prove it. It is a lie. Dr. Fauci said that masks are window dressings.
Your time has expired.
You people do not have the right to strip these children of their right to breathe fresh air.
Next, I'd like to invite Carla Orantes. Carla, you have 3 minutes.
Buenas noches. Mi nombre es Carla Orantes.
Good evening, my name is Carla Orantes.
Mi motivo de estar aquí es porque mi niño Brian Donis está en Andrés Duarte. Él necesita transportación. Ahorita no la tiene.
Mi niño que está en la escuela necesita transportación. What school? ¿Cuál escuela?
Andrés Duarte.
Andrés Duarte. Él asiste a Andrés Duarte.
Sí, él es especial. Si no lo tengo en Brisley, es por lo mismo de que él necesita clases especiales.
My son goes to Andrés Duarte and he needs transportation, but he doesn't have it. And he doesn't go to Berkeley School is because they don't have transportation.
Me le quitaron la transportación sin darme motivo ni razón.
They
¿Cuál
took
fue el
away the
motivo?
transportation without giving me any reason.
Y necesito que me den por escrito que le han quitado la transportación a mi hijo.
And I need by writing that you have taken away the transportation to my son.
También mi hijo Cristian está en Brisley y hoy me enteré que la van a cerrar. Me gustaría saber también por qué.
Mi hijo también está en I'm sorry. My
Christian.
son is also at Berkeley School, and I find out tonight that it's going to be closed, and I like to have a reason why.
Tengo a Cristian hace 5 años en esa escuela. Es una excelente escuela. Yo no he tenido problemas. Mi hijo ha prosperado muchísimo. No he tenido problemas, ni él ha tenido problemas porque tiene excelentes calificaciones y todo se lo debo a la Brisley.
My son Christian has been 3 years at 3 años? 5 años at Berkeley School, and I haven't had any problem with them. That is an excellent school, and I am very thankful to. ¿A quién le agradece, dijo?
La escuela pues tiene excelentes maestras.
The school has wonderful teachers.
Miss Luna.
Miss
Ahorita
Luna.
es Miss Torres, pero he estado con Miss Luna.
Right now, his teacher is Mrs. Torres, but he had been with Mrs. Luna. ¿Algo más?
Y Brian, pues sí me gustaría, como ya le dije, a una descripción de por qué el bus no lo recoge. También he tenido problemas de que hay muchos días que el bus ni siquiera me lo llega a dejar. Nadie a mí me informa si el niño va a llegar o no va a llegar en bus. Y yo lo que necesito es que se tomen el tiempo en llamarme. Para eso tienen mi número de teléfono para yo recoger a mi hijo. No lo puedo recoger exactamente a las 2:30 porque a esa hora sale Cristian, pero sí puedo llegar a la escuela después de las 2:30.
So I really like to know what's going on with my son transportation because I have to pick up Christian at Berkeley and then I have to go to Andrés Duarte. Su tiempo ha concluido.
Okay,
El
gracias.
superintendente se comunicará con usted.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Madam President, that's the conclusion of our public comments.
Thank you, Dr. Emerson. We now move to item 11 that became 12, Superintendent Report. Dr. Emerson.
Thank you, Madam President. So just a quick reminder on the presentations that happened this evening. I'll remind members of the community that we started a conversation this evening. There are a number of big items and big processes that we are working through as a school community and as a city. And we're committed to taking these really, really important steps in a very transparent and open and honest way. And so please engage with us in these conversations. Please place yourself in the process to be able to provide feedback and provide input so that way our board and team can make the most and best informed decision. Also, just we want to talk a little bit about, school reopening, and there's lots of excitement. There's a lot of good things happening at our schools. Doing school visits, we started our learning walks back. We're out and we're seeing good things happening in classes. Yes, we are challenged with COVID. COVID is real, and it is a real issue and a real concern that we're going to continue to focus and do everything we can to keep our students and our staff safe, full stop. That is our priority, and it will continue to be that. But there's great learning happening in our schools. Go into any of our classrooms and you see good learning happening. You see good instruction. You see high levels of engagement. You see high student and teacher interaction. That's what's happening on the ground. I see it with my own eyes. As we as we go through these processes and we go through all these years, we have these moments in time where you realize and you need to kind of take stock on the different things that have happened and the different people that you've come across and the different people you've had the pleasure and the opportunity to spend time and work with. And so that was a real hard transition, but now I want to talk a little bit about Jim Ballard, our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, who is going to be retiring. And after 35 years of service in public education, I want to thank Jim for his steadfast commitment to this district, to this community, to the staff, to these families, and to the values that we hold dear and that we think are most important to make sure that we send children out into this world to be good human beings and good citizens. Even though the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services crunches numbers, his heart and soul is with kids in classrooms, and that's why he gets up every day. It's been a pleasure to serve with Jim. I wish him well in retirement. He's got all kinds of projects on a new home that he's working on. And I plan to call on you for advice and counsel because you've been a steadfast partner. And as we work through these transitions and as we think about this, we have opportunity for new leadership. And so tonight, we have a new candidate in the room that the board is considering this evening, and the board is going to take action on. And her name is Tiffany Bell, and she is sitting here with us. And I do want to share out loud and just make sure, because everybody knows that is Ken Bell right over there. And her name is Tiffany Bell. Yes, Ken Bell has a daughter named Tiffany, but it's not her. So let's just be really clear about that. Let's start and stop with that. Tiffany Bell is our candidate for the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. She comes highly regarded, highly respected, and I think she's going to do a fantastic job. And I hope that the board supports our recommendation this evening. Lastly, I just want to welcome, in the middle of quite the crazy and entertaining at some point, I guess, board meeting tonight, I want to say welcome to Ariana and to Lupe. I'm reminded, absolutely. I am reminded by your physical presence up here on the dais about what's most important. We will expect from you your counsel, your perspective, your insights, your critical feedback to tell us what our Falcons care about, Ariana, what our MIT scholars care about, Lupe, and what our representatives from all of our K-8s and our K-6 schools, what they care about and what they're thinking about. We need you to be the conduit for that student voice to make sure it gets to this dais and it gets considered by these board members and by the superintendent and team. And so I'm looking forward to your leadership. Ariana's a vet. She did this in quarantine and in distance learning with us all last year. And she did such a good job, we brought her back. You know, she did such a good job, we brought her back. And we couldn't be happier to have her and have her expertise and her leadership and her insights. And Lupe, we're looking forward to great times with you as well. And so just on behalf of this team and on behalf of the work that we're doing, it is a challenging road ahead, without question. I make no mistake about understanding the complexities and the challenges that we face. And all I would ask, based on all the passion and all the energy that I know that we have, is that we stay focused on kids and we stay focused on building a community, because that's what we have in this city and in this town, is we have a community. So with that, Madam President, that is the end of my report. And I would ask permission to potentially ask for a recess, a short reception on behalf of Mr. Ballard.
Thank you. We will take 5 minutes recess.
And there is cake for Jim. Well, not on Jim's behalf. It's not for Jim. It's for anybody in the room. So please just take a moment to have a little reception and have a little cake. And also, Lupe and Ariana, go get cake because this is for you too. Thank you.
Dr. Finlay? Come on, Dr. Finlay is engaging us. Dr. Finlay?
I don't think.
Wow. James?
Dr. James Finley, Dr. James Finley.
Mrs. Cece Carroll, please. I know, huh? Yeah. We now move to general functions. Item 13.1, approve the minutes of the regular meeting. I need a motion.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Bell, second.
Second.
Second by Miss, it was Cece James Finley, Dr. Finley. And Mercedes, did I ask now all in favor or by name?
Madam President, if there's any discussion, and then it's just a voice vote, no roll call needed.
Okay. It was moved by Mr. Bell, second by Dr. Finley. There is any discussion? No? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Move to item 13.2, approve the consent calendar. The next item of business is adoption of the consent calendar. Does anyone want to remove any item for separate discussion or action?
Madam President?
Yes.
I definitely don't want to pull anything. That's not my intention right now.
Thank you.
But I just want to, just from a logistics standpoint, we can do a voice vote for the 5 board members, but we would actually call out specifically Ariana and Lupe individually for their votes on all of these.
Okay.
Okay.
So should I go back to approve the minutes?
No,
or
I think you
just-
can, I think you can move forward. They weren't present for that meeting anyway.
Yes, okay. No, any separate, no items to be removed for separate discussion or action? Okay, since we have no objection, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Bell, second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Carroll. Okay, there is no discussion on this one, so I will say yes, all in favor? Ariana? In favor or?
In favor.
In favor, thank you. Guadalupe?
In favor.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Give me a second. Okay. We now move to item 13.3, accept gift and donations. May I have a motion?
Move to approve. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve
Second.
donations and second by Mrs. Carroll?
Correct.
There is any discussion? Ariana? Is that Ariana?
In favor.
Ariana?
In favor.
Okay, and Guadalupe?
In favor.
Okay, board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Item 13.4, first reading of board policies. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Bell, second by Dr. Finlay. There is any discussion? Okay, Ariana?
In favor.
Guadalupe?
In favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
13.5, third quarter 2020-2021 fiscal year results of site visits, reviews, and uniform complaint data.
Move to approve.
This is received just for information. Okay. So I hope, I know that all of us read this, so it's just received by information. 13.6, board representatives to the Community Education Council, CEC. So I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Bell, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Koo. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam President. I was just wondering, well, so first of all, I want to thank the representatives that each of us board members have and for their willingness to serve on the CEC. I was just wondering if we could get maybe not at this meeting, but at a future meeting, just like a summary of what's the meetings that they've been having. I think they've been meeting virtually over the past little while, but I don't know how regular those meetings have been or anything. So if we could get a report back on that at our next meeting, that would be awesome.
Madam President?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, Dr. Finley. We could provide a staff report with just a summary of the work that we do with the CEC throughout the course of the year. Yes, we did meet all during the course of the pandemic. We did meet virtually, and we look forward to meeting throughout this year as well. So we'll bring that back for the board.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Emerson. So Ariana?
In favor.
Guadalupe?
In favor.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Item 14, personal student services. 14.1, approval of rate increase for day-to-day and long-term to certificate substitutes. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Bell, second by Mrs. Carroll.
Yes.
Any discussion?
Yes, Madam President. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Finley.
So I was just wondering if I could, I don't know if this is for probably Mr. Crosby. So I was talking to some teachers this week, and they had mentioned that sometimes it's hard to find subs. I think that this is probably going to help with that, but I was just curious, what happens when we can't find a sub?
So right now, across not just San Gabriel Valley, but actually across the United States, it was actually on the New York Times today about the lack of substitute teachers and bus drivers. And when we can't find a substitute teacher, we have first look for period coverage from when our teachers are that have their conference period. First of all, we want to have a credentialed substitute teacher in the classroom. That's first and foremost. And then we look to our staff that's on conference period. Our least choice is combining a classroom. And I'm working with an outside agency too to help find subs as well. But they're just like everybody else. It's just the people out there. If we go down the street side and you see every business with the help wanted sign on it as well, it's not just education, but when you have to have a credential or a degree for that subject, it becomes even more difficult to find the substitute teacher. But help raising the rates is hopefully going to help just retain the ones we have. So they're not going out to other districts where everybody is really desperate to get substitutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Finley. Any other comments or discussion? No? Okay, we need to vote. Ariana?
In favor.
And Guadalupe?
In favor.
And board members, all in favor?
Aye.
So 14, item 14.2, approve the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services Contract Agreement of Employment. I need a motion.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Bell,
Second.
second by Mrs. Carroll. And any discussion, comments? Do you want to make any comment right now, Dr. Emerson?
Nothing beyond what I've already shared and what the board's deliberative conversation in our closed session earlier. I'm just in staunch support of this recommendation and hope that the board will support it.
Thank you. I would like to welcome you in public and say that yes, it's not easy to come to a district as many other districts that are in so stressed economic situation, financially situation, but thank you for being here. I know you went to a very special interviews and it was not really easy. And I think that it was someone comment that how hard it was that to the interviews for her, but at the end she was the one that was choose to be our financial assistant superintendent. So I am very pleased to have you as our team, but I would like to ask you, and you don't have to come to the podium if you don't like, but I like to ask you, what is that you liked about our district and what is one of the favorite things that you love to do? Thank you.
Well, first, I'd like to thank the board. Thank you for your time and your consideration. It's greatly appreciated. I feel like when I come to Duarte, I feel like I'm at home. I'm a native of San Gabriel Valley, and I consulted with Duarte for over 15 years. And so when I walk into the area, when I drive down Huntington, when I drive past Target, I feel at home. And walk into the district office and seeing familiar faces, I feel at home. So I thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
And I did ask for move. I'm sorry. I'm gonna ask again for the approved the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services Contract Agreement of Employment. Mr. Bell moved, CC Carroll seconded, and I will ask for a vote. Ariana?
In favor.
Guadalupe?
In favor.
And I know I can ask all the board members, yes, all in favor, but this time I'm gonna do this with roll call. So Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carroll?
Yes.
Dr. Finley?
Yes, and welcome.
Thank you. Mrs. Koo?
Yes.
And Reina Diaz? Yes, thank you. We now move to item 15, educational services. 15.1, public hearing for 2021-2022 in instructional materials. Do I have a motion to open to the public hearing for the item 15.1?
Motion?
Motion by Dr. Finlay, second by by Mr. Bell. Okay, I need to ask for vote. Ariana?
In favor.
Guadalupe?
In favor.
Board members, roll call, not roll call, but this is to open the public hearing. All in favor? To
Aye.
open? Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion? Since I don't hear anything from the public, do I have a motion to close to the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Finlay, second by Cici, by Mrs. Carroll. Okay, I will call for vote. Ariana?
Yes.
Guadalupe?
In favor.
Board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The public meeting, the public hearing is closed. Item 15.2, resolutions 04/21/22, student textbooks and instructional materials compliance. I need a motion. Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Carroll, second by Mr. Bell. Any discussion?
Yes, I was wondering if you can kind of elaborate on that.
Dr. Emerson?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Ariana. Dr. Hillman.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. So for this is our standard procedure every year. We ensure that we have the appropriate textbooks that are board approved and in line with standards for every student, and that they have a textbook to use at school and at home. And this is our accounting of what we do to report out that we have gone through that process to ensure that we have the appropriate instructional materials. And if we don't, we rectify it ASAP.
Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, I will call for vote. Ariana?
In favor.
And Guadalupe?
Yes.
Board members in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 15.3, public viewing of curriculum for grade 9, secondary comprehensive sexual health and HIV/AIDS prevention. Receive this for information for the public viewing of curriculum for grade 9, secondary comprehensive sexual health. So this is just for information. Business and finances. Item 16.1, public hearing to receive and consider input regarding the composition of trustee areas maps to be used in the event the board approves a transition to by trustees area elections pursuant to Ed Code sections 5019 and 5020. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for item 16.1? Move to open by Mr. Bell, second.
Second.
By Mrs. Koo. I will call to vote to open the public hearing. Ariana?
Yes.
Guadalupe?
In favor.
And board members, all of you in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are open now to the public hearing. Seeing none, would like to speak in this item. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Motion?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Carroll, second by Dr. Finley. Okay, Ariana?
Yes.
Guadalupe?
Yes.
And all board members, are you in favor to close to the public hearing?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All of us.
It's the same, don't worry. 16.2 resolution, number 03-2122, GAN limit resolution. May I have a motion? Move by Mr. Bell, second.
Second.
Second by CC Carroll. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you, Dr. Emerson.
Yeah, no, let me defer to Dr. Finley because I know exactly what he's going to do. And Jim is queued up and ready, so go ahead, Dr. Finley.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I do have a goal of one day understanding the GAN limit really, really well. And part of meeting that goal is gonna be to have Jim explain it one last time here.
It's not
And
only
who
for
knows,
him.
maybe next year I'll even call him and we can have him come in and explain it
It's not
again.
for him too, it's for all of us.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, the GAN limit, you see it every time of the year. It comes around annually. It's always on the September board meeting agenda because ultimately we'll get to a calculation that is made based on tax revenues and other revenues that the district received in the prior year. So saying that for starters, what's the GAN limit about? The GAN limit is the result of Proposition 4, as the resolution states. In the late 70s, 1978, the California electorate passed Proposition 13, and that was to greatly reduce and limit property taxes up and down the state of California. And Proposition 4 was a result of Prop 13 and sort of an anti-tax sentiment that was in the public. You had Howard Jarvis and a guy named Paul Gann, two people who authored Proposition 4, again, in the spirit of limiting spending of taxpayer dollars. And so this GAN limit was created, and it's a calculation. The Department of Finance puts the calculation together. It's nothing that we do internally as a school district, but all school districts are subject to this thing called the GAN limit. And what it intends to do, and what the calculation is about, it's about measuring the spending, in this case, that school districts, the spending of tax dollars year in and year out, that school districts and other municipalities do. And so tonight you're approving the GAN limit, and it's what the formula takes the tax and other revenues that we've received last year, plugs it into this 2-page formula calculation. And of course, those tax revenues and other revenues we ultimately spend, right, to operate the district. And so the GAN limit checks the spending of those dollars, and you either pass or you fail according to the calculation. It's a measurement of the tax dollars coming into the district for expenditures, and do they meet this complex calculation that was authored back in the late 70s, all under the auspice of controlling tax spending by government entities. So, so they call them appropriations, right? That's a big buzzword among government budgets and so forth. The appropriations are the tax dollars and other revenues that are coming into the district that we spend on a year in and year out basis. And are we spending within the limitations that this GAN calculation proposes? And the answer is yes. So in this case, and we always have, we always have. Now you say, well, what if you don't pass? What if there's some peculiarity about a year? And in the event a school district doesn't pass, there is a default mechanism that I've heard, I used to hear from school services on this, that the calculation can be slightly manipulated or worked on. It's through some accounting machinations, just it has no impact on anything budgetarily. There's no loss of funds. There's no threat to the budget if you don't pass, but it's all about, and in the spirit of limiting tax spending on a year in and year out basis. That's really all it is. And so the GAN limit measures last year, our performance last year, hence the unaudited actuals that it extracts the numbers from. And then it has a projection in our current year budget. So it measures 2 years. And it's about appropriations, tax dollars and other dollars, revenues, subject to this limitation that it measures. So that's the GAN limit. People have questioned, well, what's the practicality of this calculation and this resolution? And school services will say, you know, there's no threat to the budget. Nothing is gained, nothing is lost monetarily. It's a checks and balances that goes back to Proposition 13 and Prop 4, authored by Paul Gann and Howard Jarvis. So in the spirit of checking, keeping taxes in check. That's what it is.
All right. Everyone get that?
Does that
We'll just rerun the tape like in like 12 months. We'll just rerun the tape.
I was thinking
Yeah,
the same.
it's very unusual, you know, it's a very, yeah.
Well, the good thing is that I think Kim was, I said Kim, that's Kim Guthrie. That's the wrong person. Tiffany was over there taking notes, I think. So, because be prepared, Tiffany, to talk about the GAN limit 12 months from now. Be
There
prepared.
we go.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Dr.
you.
Emerson. I will now call to vote. So, Ariana,
In favor.
Guadalupe,
In favor.
and board members, are you in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving to approval of the Duarte Unified School District unaudited actual financial reports for fiscal year 2020, 2021. May I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Bell, second by Dr. Finlay. Any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I actually would like Mr. Baller to, there's a specific dollar figure that is on, I believe, page 4 of the report. It is under restricted dollars. And it's a very large number. And I was talking with members of the board and just wanted to give some explanation about that large. I want to say it's in excess of about $5.3 million
Yeah.
of a shortfall or a deficit, I would say.
Right.
So can you explain that? Because I think it'll help to give some clarity.
I can. You know, the unaudited actuals is the report card on our financial condition as of how we did last year. And we all know it was the most unusual year, but we've closed the books now. You have the reports in front of you. What Dr. Amerson is referring to is an accounting look to the report. In other words, you have all the numbers on all of the pages, and most of them are positive, and you have a few that are negative. They're in brackets. And the one that's being questioned here has to do with, you have 2 columns. You have an unrestricted column with revenues and expenses, and then you have a restricted column with revenues and expenses. That specific, I'll call it a deficit amount that's identified. We have year in and year out, and it's tied to our it's tied to our special needs program. So, and here's why it's a negative number. We receive about $3 million in special ed revenues. Those show up and they're embedded in the restricted revenues side of the page. Our special needs program is also considered a restricted, part of the restricted program, and we spend about $10 million. So there's an encroachment of close to $7 million. That shows up as a negative at the bottom of the restricted column. It's because revenues received are less than expenditures for the year. Now, what does that mean? So what that means, and the way in which we cover that deficit, is we take money from the restricted column, we take money from the unrestricted column. It's transferred into the restricted column to cover that particular deficit. And that's the way it works. It's as simple as that. It's unfortunate that when we've talked about this many times, special education funding is not at a level that comes close to covering all of our costs. And that's true of every school district up and down the state. It's just the funding model, and it doesn't cover expenses that school districts have annually. And so once more, when the revenues come in for special ed, the expenses go out, there's a deficit. And we have to cover that deficit to balance the budget. And so it's not even borrowing, it's shifting unrestricted dollars over to cover that. And that shows up later. We refer to those, the accounting people in the office refer to those as contributions. The general fund unrestricted column receives money from the unrestricted to balance out, to get to a zero balance. So that's it. That's it. It's the difference in a restricted program. Revenues are lower than expenses, so it shows up as a negative. We cover that with the unrestricted balance. And I think I said that about 3 times, tried to paint it a few different ways. That's really what it is. And so remember that unrestricted dollars in the budget, I'll just add 1 or 2 more things. Unrestricted dollars in the budget are king. We can do anything we want with unrestricted dollars. Restricted dollars are subject to the program we receive them for. Title I is considered a restricted program, and the revenues that come in for Title I, as an example, federal revenues, they show up in the restricted column, just as special needs dollars show up in the restricted column. Expenses for those programs show up in the restricted column. And when you have an imbalance, when your revenues don't match your expenses, you have to cover those expenses with the unrestricted dollars. Those dollars, again, are king because there are no strings attached. And so that is, many of our budget presentations year in and year out have reflected on our unrestricted dollars. We've been teetering on the 3% mark. We've talked about that a lot over the years. Well, the 3% is all about unrestricted dollars. It's about, the district's reserve is always consists of unrestricted dollars, not restricted, because restricted are already earmarked. They're accounted for based on the programs. So yeah, in this case, if, for example, revenues came in for the special needs program and they equaled the cost of the entire program for the year, in other words, revenues equaled expenses, and you had a zero difference, there would be no need to shift unrestricted dollars over. So, practically speaking, it's a little like having 2 checkbooks. They both serve different purposes. You're overspending one area.
Jim, don't forget your mic.
Yeah, you're overspending in one checkbook, and so to cover that overspending, you're having to shift money from another account. That's really what it is. So I'm sorry if I hope that explained it. Was that adequate? Yeah. Yeah.
And I would just add, Madam President, that it's not lost on us that imbalance, the amount of money that we receive in special education funding and the amount that we're expending on our special education program. Hence the reason we commissioned the special education analysis, why we did that comprehensive analysis. We've now, we have a new special education director named Kim Guthrie, my Freudian slip a few minutes ago. And then also we've done some additional staffing. We're going back through training, going back through policy, manual development to really hone in on how to efficiently deliver on our special education programs and services. So we recognize that that's the number that we see in the budget right now as we close the unaudited actuals for last year. But we're also, this is something that we've identified that we are going to work on and address in the immediate moving forward. So just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Emerson. Any other question or discussion? No? I will call for vote. Ariana?
In favor.
Guadalupe?
In favor.
Board members, are you in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 16.4, authorization to establish Fund 0A, Student Activity Special Revenue Fund, effective July 1st, 2020. May I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Bell, second.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Koo. Discussion?
Yes. One. Jim, since you're on
Your
the roll,
microphone, please.
you're on the roll.
Mr. Bell,
Oh,
microphone,
microphone.
the microphone.
Since you're on a roll, could you do that rationale under that one where it says, Fund 08 Student Activity Revenue Fund will be used reporting ASB activities that are determined to be governmental rather than fiduciary? I just want, give me just a quick example.
Absolutely. So there's an entity out of Sacramento that we call it GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And they have authority over municipal accounting practices. We're subject to those practices, and they came out this past year, the GASB board came out with a new requirement that school districts need to have a Fund 8 to book their ASB revenues and their ASB expenses into. And so it's an addition to the book here, just like all of the other funds. It doesn't change anything we do with ASB. The high school still has their checkbook, and you'll still get the ASB reports that you've been accustomed to year in and year out. That all still takes place. But at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, we have to have a Fund 8 that has accounted for all of the transactions that's taken place through the ASB program at Doherty High School or at any of our K-8 schools that have ASB as well. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's a new fund.
That's my parting shot for you.
That was easier than the GAN limit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Would now move that. There is any other discussion? No? Okay, I will call to vote. Ariana?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Guadalupe?
In favor.
Favor. Board members?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving to item 16.5, award contract to construction management services for Measure S projects to Erickson Hall Construction Incorporation. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Bell.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Carroll. Dr. Emerson?
Thank you, Madam President. It's a privilege to bring this item to the board this evening. The district is very fortunate to be supported by our community, and we were successful in securing Measure S for $79 million that will help to continue to transform the educational facilities and programs for our students across this district. The board has been engaged in conversations about some of those projects, and those projects have already gotten underway. And one of the pieces that we've already put in place is an architecture firm who is designing the high school gymnasium, which is a major project and a major goal of this district. So to couple that work that's happening with the architecture firm and the overall development of the Measure S program, we want to have a construction manager. So we have an architect who draws it. Now we're bringing on a construction group who builds it. And so the opportunity this evening is to approve the contract for construction management services for Erickson Hall. Tonight we have several representatives from Erickson Hall, and I think that if their ability to still be here at 10:35 in strength, if that's the type of customer service and types of visible presence we're going to have from the Erickson Hall team, that's a good first step and that's a good sign. So they are here, and if the board happens to have any questions that they'd like to ask, we have Matt Gates, who is the president of Erickson Hall. We have Justin Sinat, who's the project executive, Mike Arnold, who is the project manager, Scott Hammond, who's the director of public relations and governmental affairs, and Noemi Avila, who is also a programming consultant that works for Erickson Hall. And so we have been working through a very, very, very meticulous process. We did an RFP, RFQ, which is a very public process that puts it out to the community and all vendors who might be interested. And Erickson Hall went through a very rigorous process. I think we had 16 vendors that submitted full proposals, and we went through a rigorous process and they were the selected firm after the completion of that process. So they are our recommendation to the board this evening, and I'll take any other questions or any other comments that members of the board have.
Board members? No questions, no comments? Okay. We trust our superintendent and the staff. So I will call each of you to vote on this tonight. And so I will go with Ariana,
In favor.
Guadalupe,
In favor.
Mr. Bell,
Absolutely, yes.
Mrs. Carroll,
Yes.
Dr. Finley,
Yes.
and Mrs. Koo,
Yes.
and Reina Diaz. Yes, thank you. This item has been approved. Item 16.6, amendment to number 2 to agreement for architectural services with Little Architects for the Duarte High School Sports Complex modernization and new gymnasium. May I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Bell,
Second.
second by Mrs. Carroll. There in any discussion? Any question?
I guess it was just a question again to again explain this, what exactly is going on with this?
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Carroll. And I'll ask Mr. Baller to share this amendment and what what needs to happen in order to move forward with our gymnasium construction.
Yeah, okay, very good. What we've found in the plans that the architects are drawing for the new gymnasium is that the footprint for the gymnasium there is a storm drain that runs under the gymnasium the layout of the building. And so they found this right away, early on, and so they are going to have to work around that and do some new plans and specifications for rerouting that storm drain line. So they're going to take it about 20 yards out to the west and run it along, so it'll run parallel to the gymnasium. It just won't run under the gymnasium. So that's what they're doing. They're taking that existing line out from underneath the gymnasium. And it's not a change order. Someone in the office thought it might, it's not a change order. It's an amendment to the architect's contract because there's additional work involved that wasn't planned for in the original documents. So it's added work for the architects. But we have to have that storm drain accessible, can't be under the foundation of the gym. So a little more work is involved in this. And that's the architect's proposal to do the work. So that's why that's on the board agenda tonight.
Thank you, Jim, but just as a point of clarification, change of order, it means that it will cost us more. And on this amendment means that it will not cost us any money, right?
Well, it's good. It's a good question. An amendment to a contract, in this case, it is a slight increase for the architects to do the additional work in designing the new sewer line. So this amendment does have a cost attached to it. It's an amendment to the work that they were commissioned to do, and it's an addition to that work. A change order is a project in which the construction is underway and there is something found, either the owner wants to make a change to the work that's being done, or something is found out and the owner is required to make a change because there's something inherently not quite right about the construction that's happening. That's considered a change order circumstance. And yeah, usually those have an additional cost.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I will direct this question to Dr. Emerson. That has any connection, that amendment has any connection with the construction that is going across the street from the high school?
No, those are two separate pieces. So the project that's going on across the street from the high school is being done, if I remember correctly, by Caltrans, and it's a stormwater reserve basin that is being put in there. Although this is for a storm drain, which those are two similar things, they are not they're not connected. They're
I
not
see.
tied together. They're two separate projects.
Okay, thank you. There is any other question, board members? Thank you. I thought that without the mic, I will see better. I didn't have my glasses today. I need to ask for vote on item 16.6. Ariana.
Abstain.
You. Guadalupe?
Abstained.
Miss, board members, are you in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
And I think that we become to the agenda item that you really will love to hear about, non-agenda item, and I will start with Mr. Bell.
Well, real quick, especially since we have the team, the construction team here, I sure hope in the gym, Superintendent or Amerson, that we really put the history of our school in and on the wall, so we can finally get to the place where our young people can see that all the young people that have come through here have set records. Some won an NBA, some played in the NFL, but nobody knows about it. So if we can certainly do that and make that a moment in time that the Duarte community will see some of the athletes that have come through here. And it will be a real good thing for our community to see our young people in that area, in that brand new gym. That would be what I would like to see. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mrs. Carroll.
Yes. Oh, well, those are really good suggestions. I like that with murals or something, the history. I think that's great. I was going to say about our last two back to school nights, which was at Mount Olive and at the high school. And they're all very different. Every back to school had its own personality to it. And I have to say, I enjoyed both equally. Mount Olive is a lot smaller, so it's very intimate, and they do a barbecue, which is really great. And in the high school, well, I have my son there. So for me, it's partly board member / mom there, because I wanted to know the teachers also there. So I really am pleased with, and just so happy this year for my son, and he has some excellent teachers there. And, tonight was a passionate meeting in itself. And, I was in your place 5 years ago, pretty much, when that came out again with the schools. And of course, I was from Valley View, and the passion was there with all the other schools combined. And I love the fact that parents really love their schools, and they're going to try to protect their schools. And they don't, it's one of the things that elementary school especially, it's very sacred to them, this is where the kids go to school, and I get it. And since I can remember when my daughter was in elementary school, it has been declining enrollment since I've known it. I was at one of the, I think, largest years where my daughter was going to middle school. I think it was either fifth grade planning for sixth grade or sixth grade going to seventh, when a large population of parents decided to pull their kids out to take them to another district, which did not help our district whatsoever. And since then, I've always been super optimistic. Yes, hopefully we can get those kids to come to our schools. Our new, Huntington Drive apartments, or, all the development that's going on. I always have hope that we can change it, and we can have these kids come in, but there is a lot of different deterrents also, low enrollment rates, a lot of people moving out of California. Nobody can afford housing in Duarte anymore. So we do have, and it's not even our issue, it's all of California. So I know we still have to work out these complexities out there, and we love the fact that parents, are out here, and the teachers too, for the most part. Like I said, we love Duarte, and it doesn't matter what school you go to, but we love our district. And, everybody's going to be passionate about their elementary school course. And I'm passionate about, with the high school in itself, because I think when it comes down to it, we have to figure out how to solve where parents will stay till the high school. And that's really an issue too. And we got to keep those parents. And if nobody would have left, in all those 15 years, maybe we wouldn't have had these issues either. So, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carroll. Dr. Finley.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate that. So yeah, I agree with what's the sentiment that has been shared amongst many of us. You know, it's not ideal that people's passion for their schools has to come out at a time like this. But it is, if there's a silver lining to any of this, it's good to see that passion does exist, even if it's somewhat dormant at times. And we, meaning the board and Dr. Amerson and his team, we do have a lot of work ahead of us. There's a lot of things to consider, to fully consider how we're going to approach this and what we can do to minimize the impact throughout the district. And I think that's one thing that we'll all have to consider is the district as a whole. What's best for the district as a whole? And I think that there's no way to have this disruption not affect some people more than others. And that's the unfortunate truth of this. And, you know, I hope that we can find strategies and policies that can mitigate those challenges that are going to impact, as I said, some people more than others. And so we'll work hard to do that. We're going to be open to suggestions. We're going to be as transparent as we possibly can be, and make sure that every step along the way, you know, people may not agree with the choices that are made, but at least they'll know why they were made, even if they don't make sense to them. So that's my promise to the community that will happen. A couple of things I wanted to just bring up, and I talked to Dr. Amerson about this. It was brought to my attention that there's the Metro, LA Metro has a program that I think we should try to at least look into and see what possibilities there are with it, to go ahead and get tap cards for any students that would like them, that will function not only for the Gold Line, well, all of the light rail system in Los Angeles County, as well as the Foothill Transit bus that goes through Duarte, that, you know, does rounds through Duarte, goes right next to my house, in fact. I think that would be something that would be really important for kids to be able to take advantage of, you know, whether it is, you know, an after school job, sports after school, you know, taking the train to a job in Pasadena or to a concert in Pasadena, or whatever it is. I think that would be something really great for our students to be able to take advantage of, because I don't know if anyone has noticed, but we kind of have a traffic problem in Southern California in general. And I myself used to work in Los Angeles at USC, and for a little while until the Gold Line opened up, I was driving into USC every day, and that was about the end of me. Like I could not handle that. And yes, you know, did it take me a little bit of time to figure out how to navigate the train and then take a shuttle and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, it did. But I can tell you, like, my cortisol levels just dropped through the floor after I got to start taking the Gold Line. I could sit on there, I could watch a YouTube video, I could take a nap, I could read a book, I could do all these things. And it's just getting over that initial little hump of navigating a transportation system. And I think once students get introduced to that, I think that'll be something that will click in and make a big difference down the road, when transportation systems like this are something are gonna be our reality. So the cost to this to the district is $3 per student for the whole year. So it's a pretty minimal cost. Now it's to every student. So there would be a charge to even a kindergartner who wouldn't necessarily use the pass, but that's just the way the system works, to go ahead and charge based on the size of the district. But I think that would be a really good thing for us to explore. So I would just ask Dr. Emerson if you and your team could look into that. I sent some information along to you. So if that's a possibility, I think it'd be really great for us to explore that. And I think it would pay long-term dividends for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Finley. We now move to Mrs. Koo.
Thank you. One of the things that I wanted to kind of put out there that was in one of our agenda items, but it was really quickly, it just bundled all together in the consent calendar, was the fact that our teachers are taking overload assignments, going above and beyond what their contract states to just make sure our kids get what they need. And so I just wanted to say thank you to them for that. You know, everybody is tired, but a lot of teachers are going beyond and what is being asked, just to support our community and our students, and that's amazing. Another thing I wanted to talk about was back to school night at MIT. It was my first time going to that campus, and I was blown away by the back to school night. It was real. I was amazed by all the programs and opportunities those kids have. Something that I want to, and I've talked to Dr. Emerson about this, but you know, that school is tucked away. Like I see all of these beautiful marquees at all of our schools, but I didn't see one at MIT. And I think with all of this construction and proposals to all of the different sites, I myself, when I realized this, when I went to back to school night, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't see MIT anywhere on there about potential projects for the site. And I think we really do need to show pride in all of our school sites and to ensure that no matter what school our students go to be prideful that they're in our district. And, you know, a marquee doesn't seem like a lot, but it just shows that we care about the students that go there, and that everybody matters. And so I just want our district to reflect that better. Outside looking in, it doesn't look that way. But going to the back to school night, I definitely felt that it's an amazing school. I just want people who drive by to see it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Koo. I will go with Ariana.
First off, before I give my spiel of what I have to say, I just want to agree with Ms. Koo. I think it's kind of tucked away. It has like this kind of connotation that it could be like a bad school, but that's not the case at all. We should have a pride between all of our schools in the district. So thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Koo. Okay, so tonight we did see a lot of hectic, passionate discussions about things going on in the community, and this community does deserve transparency and communication. A lot of them claim that that's what we lack, and I think that's something that we can address. And school shutting down is a very sensitive and complicated process. I personally went to Andrews Doherty, and it's very upsetting to see that it comes down to this. But a lot of more discussion need to be done. This was just the first of many. So I'd like to thank everyone that did come out and share their opinion and bring it up to the board, because that's just a part of being in the community and voicing your opinion and all that. So something else that I thought was that we need to all understand is that we are all scared, and none of us have been through a pandemic, and we're basically going into this blindly. And I doubt that anyone wants to wear these masks anymore. We're sick and tired of them as well. But we work together to keep our district safe, to keep our students safe, especially our younger ones. And being a high school student, I know that I have to wear it, and I have to be an inspiration to those younger kids that see me wearing it and know that they have to wear it too. because I may be just as tired as they are, but I still got to keep others safe. So some people may see me up here and think I'm just a student, but students are the most important part between all these districts, between all these schools. And I have a voice, and I want to be the voice for others and other people in these districts and on these campuses. And I really want to see these districts thrive, because I've been going to this district for basically my whole life, and I really do love this district. And this pandemic did not help in any way in our planning or anything that we had. The world was kind of just paused. And I know that's a difficulty and something we have to, bypass, but I hope the board will always favor the students and all their decisions. So thank you.
Thank you, Ariana. Guadalupe?
Thank you. So I kind of agree with, as a student from Mount Olive, how it's just like kind of tucked away. Whenever like we drive by, I show my mom like, oh, look, my school. And then she's kind of like, oh, where is it? So yeah, I think that would be great to, kind of show that we do care about that school just as much as all the other schools. Also about Beardsley and Andres Duarte. I definitely feel what the parents are feeling, because I myself have nephews in that school. So it's definitely, I understand that it's a very sensitive topic, and that there's a lot of discussions to be had about that. So just want to let you know I'm right there with you. And just like Ariana said about the masks, it's very important for the students to be wearing them in school. Maybe they're not in danger, but they could have older people at home. They could have people with disabilities at home, and that could be very dangerous for them and impact them in ways that we don't even know. So I just think that we have to be very aware of that and encourage to keep wearing masks and keep distance, and follow all the regulations. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Guadalupe. Then it will be my turn before I turn it to Dr. Emerson. I would like to say that if it is possible, Dr. Emerson, for the next board meeting, if you can tell us about how is the enrollment of this year, how many students have we declined, if it is something like similar to last year or the year before, or how is that, how we're doing in that. I also would like to ask you, as far as I remember, when we hired you, I remember one day I asked you, and I was not the president, but I asked you, it was Reverend Edwards. I asked you, what you will do to keep in contact with the teachers? And you did mention to me that you will share your cell number with them. You did or you did not?
No, I have shared my cell phone number with the entire school district at convocation. Placed it up on the screen, got hundreds of text messages from folks after that. The number hasn't changed. It's still available, and I still answer. I still show up whenever a teacher texts me or call me. That's why I gave it. That's why I gave it out.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that it's in record that we do ask you for some requirements to be in touch with the teachers. The only voice that we hear is when the parents came to our homes or called us, but most of the time they will say what their concerns are, but we want to make sure, most of the time I turn them to the person that is in charge of that concern that they have. And then I tell them, first talk to your teacher. If your teacher cannot answer that question, ask for the principal. If the principal doesn't listen to you, go to the assistant superintendent. If he doesn't, then go to the superintendent. And if he doesn't listen to you, then go to the board. And when the public come to the microphone, we don't respond in public, because this meeting is in public, but not for the public, not to enhance in a communication. So, but I want to make sure that the people who came today have some kind of respond as this is the first meeting that we had, or this is the where we have the information about masks. And I know that we're not going to agree all the time in this issue, but I will tell you that serving on this board for almost 24 years has been a really an excellent ride. Good times, bad times, sad times, but I know that it's not easy. It's not easy. And when we come up here and we say all in favor, yes, aye, it's because we already read hours, and we read hours and hours and hours of information. So when we say item 4.1, they know what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about. And tonight it shows that if we don't look into all the information that we receive ahead of time, and it happened a situation like we confront tonight, we are. So I appreciate the time that you take to be here prepared, because it's not easy. It's not easy. It's a lot to read, and it takes a lot. And it's a lot of people here, all your assistants, all your cabinet, they help us to prepare ourselves. But I really appreciate, once again, I will say it publicly, I really appreciate the help that I receive and all of us receive from Mercedes. Mercedes she does excellent work with us. Make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do. And I really appreciate that, Mercedes. Yes, I really appreciate that help. I will also want to share that for in these many years of service, this is the first year that I've seen schools having back to school night before the school start. It's the first year. I was like, what? You know, and they were really good presentations. So I appreciate that work that teachers put before even they were teaching. So I want to make sure that the teachers hear that. I also will tell you that tonight was a very different night than other board meetings, but I can tell you that we're still in the best country of the world, because we have the right to speak up and no one can quiet. I was in Guatemala just a week ago, and Guatemala ran a curfew by the assembly. No one can be out in the street by 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. And so we were there so afraid that they can shoot you or they can arrest you, they can do anything. But when it was the assembly having to vote if it really passed or not, by that time, it was already in place. And it was just a circus to see that assembly. They don't ask to the public. They don't make any presentation. They make the decision. It was terrible. It was an awful situation. So I can tell you that we're still living in the best country of the world. I also want to say that I would like to congratulate all the Central American people and the Mexican people today. We are celebrating the 200 years of independence, and it's a big deal for many of us. I did left El Salvador before the war begins, and I was very blessed to be able to be embraced by this community. It was not easy. It was living in El Salvador, 17 years old by myself. It was really walking for 3 months until I got here. It was a journey. So I do appreciate all the comments that many people made tonight. But when you work with your mind and your heart, you do the right thing. So I really bless all the teachers. I ask for blessings to all the teachers who work, not just in our district, but especially in our district, but in the entire world. Couple of years ago, someone came from a foundation named Fusalmo in El Salvador and walked around our community, our schools, and they saw a 3D printer at MIT. And they were surprised. And the president of that foundation, who helped over 9,000 students, say, my dream is to have one of those 3D printers. And I was able to help them through many of my friends, and we bought the first 3D printers that they have in El Salvador. Dr. Finlay was able to walk at that site 2 weeks ago during labor weekend, and he could see everything that those kids are learning, either before or after school, because they don't have the gift to learn technology as we do here. And so, you know how all the things that they do with that 3D printer, it is amazing. So people know about Duarte Unified. There's some people that know that their ideas come from our district. And so I am very blessed to serve as humbly serve to our community. And I hope that to make the right decisions and whatever we have to make decisions in the future, near future. And with that, I say thank you. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for learn how to also delegate. I don't like to delegate at my home, and I becoming the housekeeper because my kids don't want to, my grandkids doesn't want to do what I asked them because I didn't delegate. Thank you for your leadership. Dr. Emerson, it's your time.
I have said plenty, and it is beyond 11. So the only thing I will say in conclusion is, if there's one thing I took away from this evening, it's the words of Lupe and Ariana about keeping all of us safe and doing what's necessary to make sure that we can keep our schools open, we can stay in person, and that means we have to take the necessary precautions. Don't have to take my advice, take our kids' advice, because that came from them. And I think that's important. So thank you guys for sharing your insights, because that's exactly why we want you to be a part of these meetings and have that voice and share that with the community. So that's all I have to say, Madam President. Thank you.
Want me second? Second? Second, yes. Yeah, it's going to go down the line.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Signature.